when the sun's out, it's just not as tight. It's still tight when the sun goes in. And when the car is loose, it's just not as loose, but it's still loose.
Jeff Hammond.
Mike, we've been listening to some of the driver conversation down here, and we caught Jeff Gordon talking to his crew chief, telling him that, look, I can't tell you exactly what my car is doing, but if you can listen in on the 16 or Greg Biffle, his car is doing the same thing mine is. Greg Biffle right up in front of that 24 car, trying to give maybe his guys a little bit more information about how to fix this 24. So the car is very twitchy, sliding around one lap, and then all of a sudden losing the back end the next.
I'll be dadgum if I'd be listening to the 16, because he's running what, Larry? Back there in 12th place. I believe I'd be checking with that 48 car if it's me, because he's up there leading the race.
5th place just changed hands. Denny Hamlin moving past Clint Boyer.
Oh, there you go. I can see clearly now.
Reagan has the UPS Ford in 19th, about 17 seconds off the lead. 7th place battle here. Jeff Burton, Jamie McMurray going at it. Advantage McMurray. They're all chasing Jimmy Johnson. The 4-time Sprint Cup champion has a lead of 0.7 of a second.
The Coca-Cola 600 Hot Box is sponsored by Sprint, proud sponsor of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series.
133 laps, 200 miles complete at Charlotte Motor Speedway. 2 laps ago, Kyle Busch drove into the lead in front of his brother and Jimmy Johnson, who slipped to 3rd. Here's the pass.
We're on the outside, got that momentum off the corner, and you can get a lot of straightaway speed by running off that corner high like that.
But I think we got the report that the 48 car Jimmy Johnson was getting loose, and it didn't look like he was getting off the corner, which hurts him all the way down the back straightaway.
You know, Larry, I made this observation about that 48 car. That car is bad fast every time, everywhere we go. But that's not an easy race car to drive, I don't believe. I mean, it runs so on the edge all the time. And I think that's a big tribute to Jimmy Johnson, that he can perform at the level he does in that car as loose as it normally is.
He's about to surrender 3rd place to last year's winner of the 600, David Ruderman.
And we're getting within about 10 to 12 laps of what will be scheduled green flag pit stops.
Now, Greg Biffle's car is sponsored by a company that makes bandages. Good thing. Look at the right side of Biffle's car here.
It's a little snappy loose right there on corner exit.
But Darrell, you could see he had those right side tires above that black, and there's just no.
You just can't. You know what? I mean, that's the first time he's really hit the wall. You can't get away with that. Sooner or later, that thing's going to hit that wall, bite into it, and cause you to tear the whole right side out of it. Hammond and I were talking about Biffle before the race, and Jack felt like Jack Rouse felt like he had a really fast race car.
Really nice, but E12 right there, doing good.
But he was a little bit worried about the line that Greg runs around the racetrack.
So the complexion of this race has changed with the Busch brothers out front. Kyle leading for the first time tonight. Kurt in 2nd. David Ruderman now 3rd. And Jimmy Johnson has dropped to 4th. Steve.
And Mike, I think the track's starting to go through a big transition. I thought I heard Jimmy Johnson say the car's getting tighter and tighter, so I checked with Ron Malik, the crew chief, and he nodded his head. They're going to stop at about 7 or 8 laps.
And when I said that the 48 car is a hard car to drive, I just mean that Jimmy, the way they run the car, the way Jimmy likes the car's usually real free, and that's hard to hang on to.
Transitioning from daylight to twilight.
Well, let's pick up on our FedEx understanding the race. Remember, we talked about the different conditions. We talked about what it was like when they dropped the green flag. In the daylight, you can see right here in the twilight, the air temperature is down to 82 degrees. Track temp down almost 20 degrees to 100 degrees. Now, track conditions, the track is starting to gain some grip with it cooling down. And right now, this is where your car needs to be free up.
You also need to get pretty aggressive with adjustments right here.
See, Tony Stewart, he's just pulled a tear off of his helmet. Still got a ways to go here. He's still a pretty dark colored shield on there with the tear offs. But you'll see that thing be perfectly clear here before long. See it flapping on that's the tear off, and he's still got a couple more on there.
Tony in ninth. He's got about a half a second on Joey Logano.
We just always use sunglasses. We'd start the race with a bold pair of sunglasses. When it got a little bit, when the sun went down, we'd take them off, throw them over the floorboard, and they'd lay over there and cook all night.
Or he'd start with a pair of those old bubble goggles. You can see a pair of those at the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
A couple pair of those strapped to your helmet.
Juan Montoya is back in the race. As you have a look at Dale Jr., they completed repairs at lap 130, so he's been back out for the last 10 circuits. And here's Dale Jr. with a clear face shield. Hard at work in 24th place.
You know, Montoya is 60-some laps down here, but you know Dale Earnhardt, the first-time senior, the first time he ran the Coke 600, he finished the race, he was 45 laps down.
And the problem with Dale Earnhardt Jr. is he's only about 5 seconds from being lapped by our leader, Kyle Busch, at 18.
And you want to know how tough this race is, and particularly back then, he stopped late in the race to get a drink of water.
Wow. Lap 92 was the last pit stop, so get ready for the next one with an AT&T race break. Here's Chris and Jeff.
Thanks, Mike. Kyle Busch ahead of Kurt Busch. And, of course, Kurt Busch so good on this type of track, Jeff. His last 3 wins, similar layouts. Atlanta, and then Atlanta of the previous year, Texas last fall.
Well, I think right now Kurt Busch is settled into saying, okay, brother, you want to lead this race, go ahead. I think you're going to see him just kind of play a little cat and mouse, kind of keep his car into what I consider comfort zone, make the right adjustments as we go along. You've already heard about Larry and Darrell talking about as we go into the twilight, making the proper adjustments. And some teams need to make big swings. I look for them to make, pulling rubbers out, maybe putting a rubber in, bigger adjustments to the track bar, Chris, to try to get their cars back in the hunt early on, because they can't afford to keep losing ground. Take a look right here at Jimmy Johnson, currently 4th. This is one of the guys, and his crew chief, I think, do the best job of making the right adjustments at the right time.
Jimmy Johnson, remember, dominated Dover, leading 225 laps, but had the speeding penalty on pit road. Led the most laps of the All-Star race, but spawned late. So do those things enter the mental part of this race, knowing there's a long haul to go, 400 miles?
It better not be. You better be focused on what you're doing today. Don't worry about what happened in the past. We take a look here at Jamie McMurray. Ganassi Racing's best hope as far as getting to victory lane this afternoon and doing basically the double here Memorial Day weekend, winning the Indy 500 and coming back and winning the prestigious Coca-Cola 600.
Yeah, Jamie McMurray with Chip Ganassi in that India Daytona 500 as we get ready for pit stops. Cast your vote all season long for the AT&T fastest pit crew of the year as Greg Biffle comes in. Your AT&T phone is where you want to text to 2258, delivered by AT&T, the nation's fastest 3G network. And let's check in with Steve Burns.
Chris, Greg Biffle in his 16 saying that his car is still a little bit loose. Matt.
The 43 of Allmendinger's in, as well as the 12 of Keselowski. He pulls to a stop. He was running 9th, took 2 tires for track position, but then started to drop all the way to 19th. His car way loose on entry and extremely loose on exit.
Tony Stewart's in, Ryan Newman to the pit lane. All the Hendrick cars coming, along with Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, Elliott Sadler. Matt.
The Army car started on the pole, then made a track position 2-tire stop earlier on, and then the car started to falter. They're going to go back on their adjustments. Tony Gibson's going to shuffle the air pressures. 4 tires on this stop. Ryan didn't want them to go too big on their adjustment, wanted to see how the car felt in the twilight with 4 tires.
Martin Truex is in, Harvick, Menard, Casey Kane, Regan Smith. Krista.
You guys mentioned big changes. How about this for taking a swing? The 56 is going to go up on the track bar. 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds. Matt.
Harvick hit pit road in the 14th position. His car tight on this last run. Air pressure change for the 29.
Marcus Ambrose, Clint Boyer, Joey Logano, and Jeff Burton pitting. Steve.
Clint Boyer into the 33. Now earlier his car was loose. Now he's saying tight in and tight from the center off. They'll make air pressure adjustments to the left side. Car has gotten tight.
Robbie Gordon, Kyle Busch, along with Sam Hornish and Jimmy Johnson, all making pit stops. Matt.
A track bar change, 2 stops to go for Kyle Busch. Dave Rogers was asking, what do you want this stop, wedge or track bar? He called from the cockpit. He wanted a track bar change on the 18. A little too free, Steve.
Matt Jesse adjustment for Jimmy Johnson, and this time he takes 4 tires. The last